what is the second commandment really telling us about the use of images, the danger of making images either of Yahweh or maybe even of other gods? So maybe you could just start us off with kind of an overview of the issue, the topic of images, and how it relates to idolatry in the Old
Sure.
Testament.
So I think we actually have to back up and look at the first commandment and make sure we get it in its proper setting first. As we traditionally understand it, we should not have anything else before God in terms of primacy, those sorts of things. That's an absolutely valid interpretation, but it's not what it means in its first instance. The term that's used both in Exodus and in Deuteronomy to say you shall have no other gods before me is a spatial term. And literally, what is being commanded there at its most basic level is ordinarily in the ancient Near East, when you go to war with another country, your goal is not only to defeat them, but you want to raid their temple, take their idols, bring them home to your temple. And so your God's idol will be placed at the highest point. The other captured gods would be placed lower. And it's a way of creating a visual pantheon. So in its first instance, as Israel's going to go into the promised land, they are not allowed to think of what's happening as I'm now gaining additional deities under the control of my God who will serve as a little pantheon. And so that's ruled out. Now, by extended application, yes, we should not have anything that is before God, anything that is greater than him. And that could be all sorts of things that we might idolize now, or even then, like power, wealth, other things like that. But it's no pantheon creation out of the idols that you might steal. So this is why we get the destruction of these things along the way as you get into Canaan. So then what you do is that flows then into the second. So not only can you not take them, but you should not be making any idols. And that would cover two things. First of all, you're not supposed to make idols of other deities. And I think that is what's happening in the golden calf instance in Exodus 32, because Aaron doesn't say, behold your God or behold Yahweh. He says, these, plural, are your gods. And what they had requested was make gods, plural for us. And we know that it's plural there because the verb itself is plural, that they might go out before us. So we don't know what happened with Moses. We don't know what's going on with Yahweh on the mountain while he's gone. So make us another set of deities who can go out before us because we're in the wilderness, supposed to go to the promised land. So we need some power that's going to affect this for us. So it's really going after that. But there's also a sense in which you cannot make anything that is to represent God that is visual in nature. God says, look, I've never shown myself to you. He's all right. They hear him. He appears in cloud and fire, but he is not the cloud. He's not the fire. And so I've not ever given you a visual to tell you how to think of me in that way. So you're not allowed to do that either. And both these really are at heart, right? If you think about the basic creation, we are to have dominion over everything that's on the earth and represent God as a vice regent. We are here connected to him, reflective of him. And so we're supposed to administrate this world as his representatives. When we take a created thing and flip it over like that, what we're doing is saying these things we should be administrating are now over us. And so we're elevating the things that are actually lesser than us and lesser than God because he's creator. We are not, they are not. And then saying these things are the source of life. And so in that way, then we're kind of reversing the creation order and then I think what happens is we create God in a way that we have control over. Idols must be worshiped. They require offerings. The basic quid pro quo in the ancient Near East is you give me food, I give you blessing in terms of the sacrifices that are made. God says, no, cattle on 1,000 hills are mine. Even if I had a need, I wouldn't tell you. I don't have needs, but I wouldn't tell you about it because you can't do anything. So this is the basic premise. It's keeping the creation order. God is creator, us as his representatives, other things is what we are to administer on his behalf in their proper places, representing him as the creator of all and us as his only due representatives on earth. So I think that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, Michael, do you see a parallel there in the book of Genesis itself, right in the very beginning? That's exactly what's happening. We see God, man, woman, and then the creation, whereas we see Satan taking up the form of a serpent, animal, gets to the woman and then to the man and wants to subdue God in some sense.
Exactly. And so he takes up a form which they should have control over, right? They're to have
Hmm.
dominion over all these things. They fail even in terms of their relationship with each other because we sometimes forget this. We have to remember she gave to her husband who was with her. So it's not like she ran from the serpent and said, "Hey, I have this thing for you," and he has no idea what's going on. He's been hanging out silently with her for this event, and not intervening. She's not intervening. He's not intervening. So it is a complete flip of the creation order as it should be taking place, and that's exactly what's happening in those early chapters of Genesis.